Hey, Mike, you have to get a date for the policy committee.
Space Island.
Isn't Charlotte North Carolina trying to save you somewhere on NASCAR? So maybe it's going to get pricey now. All these unsafe things. Just be vet.
There you go.
Pledge to the flag. I'd like to say Happy New Year to everybody. This is our first school board meeting of 2012. So we're already to number 3 on the agenda, which is comments from the audience regarding items for future consideration. I do want to remind everyone that this is a committee of the whole meeting, so members of the audience can speak during the other reports that we have as well, if you have comments or questions on that. But this is the time where if you have any items for future agenda, if you would come up to the microphone and state your name.
Hi, I'm Amy Ellison, 12121 West Godsell Avenue in Hales Corners. I have a 4th grade daughter at Hales Corners Elementary, and I would like the board to consider, as you move forward, talking about more with the staffing for the next school year, considering bringing back that part-time GT consultant position. A few years ago, we had Jean Macriff at the middle school and high school, and that was eliminated when we had to make a lot of tough budget cuts. And I'm just hoping, since I saw on my taxes went down for the school district, that perhaps there'd be a little bit of room where maybe there could be that support person, that mentor kind of person to advocate for the children who have a different way of learning, a more intense way of learning, and who, as they move forward in middle school and high school, sometimes struggle with anxiety, perfectionism, and depression, unfortunately, as they don't feel connected with people, or they're really striving to always be that perfect student, and that's really difficult for them. So I know that the staffing plan will be coming up a lot in the future months, so I wanted to put that out there to consider that. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Anyone else? Okay, let's move on to number 4, the consent agenda. On the consent agenda tonight, we have A, approval of the Carl Perkins 66.03 agreement between Franklin, Greendale, Greenfield, St. Francis, and the Whitnall School District. B, approved teacher hire, and C, approved curriculum director stipends. Is there anyone want to remove anything from the consent agenda?
A and C, please.
No? Okay, can we have a motion to approve B?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Okay. Bernie?
On A, I want to make sure, Doug, that you had the opportunity to review the annual budget for the cooperative program. You had a,
I have not seen it.
you have not seen it? Okay. I would like to make sure that Doug has had the opportunity to review that. I know it's not a very large budget, and it's very single purpose, but nonetheless, I think it's important our business manager takes a look at that, so. That's the only comment I have in that regard.
That's available for him to review. Joel?
Yes, it will be.
It's not out yet? It should be.
It's not. The state hasn't even told us. They were supposed to give us data in December.
Okay.
And now they're talking February. So we're talking among the co-op to see where we can go with it.
And the deadline to sign the agreement is?
That I don't know. It's generally done at this time of year. We will not get funded through the co-op until we sign it. And that would be for next year, too.
Says the effective date is January 4th, 2012, and it's good for 1 year. Yeah. Looks like we signed it on the 3rd. The recommendation.
Well, so I think to follow up on Bernie's point, then, if we hold off for 2 weeks where we find out the cost, is that going to cause us a problem? Lowell, do you know?
Shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
But will we know in 2 weeks? You're saying February.
Yes. It's a difficult call to make right now. Basically, if I understand what you're asking me, is what this district will spend on sending students to other districts. And a lot of that, we can't tell until we get the registrations. As I understand it, it's the district's commitment that the 66 is looking for, and that's all it is a commitment to follow through the rules and regulations that the state has on the co-op to make sure that all the funding goes through the way it's supposed to. It does not commit you to a dollar amount.
Have we had it in the past, do you know? Bernie or TJ, maybe?
I don't recall, but if
Yeah.
we had it, I'd have to go back and look.
I don't know how you would know what the numbers are until the students register. What this does is, all it says basically is that you agree to the points that are in the agreement there. It says that we'll share data, we'll share programs, we'll use the cooperative as the funding fiscal agent, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't say that Whitnall will spend a certain amount or will not exceed spending a certain amount.
So if we pull this from the consent agenda, Joel, what, does that present any problems?
It's not a problem, no. It's just, really what you're doing is a technicality. Under Perkins Grant, you've done this year after year after year as long as the co-op's been in existence. Because Whitnall does not receive a certain threshold of funds, we have to go through a co-op and a different fiscal agent. And that's all this agreement is that we'll abide by the rules and regulations of that agreement.
Was St. Francis the fiscal agent last year?
It is. It was last year, it is this year. They're asking that we consider being it for next year.
Well, if it doesn't do any harm to pull it for 1 more month, I'd like to pull it and revisit it next month. It's okay.
So do we need a motion to, was that your motion
I'll
to
make a
table
motion
it?
to table item 4A from the consent agenda until February's meeting of the whole.
Second.
All right, all in favor of that? Aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed?
No.
No? Is that? All right, and Bernie, C?
C was more of a comment than anything else. I just want to make sure that when we made changes as we did on this particular item back in December, that we all realized the financial impact as relative to whatever we had originally budgeted. So I want to make sure that whether it be an item like this or any other item, we understand the effect on fund balance. I get concerned that when we have an item that is actually voted on and then approved, and then we come back, revisit, and it ends up with a financial obligation greater than what was originally approved, I want to make sure the board understands the financial impact on our fund balance. That's the only comment I want to make. So, and that's true of just about any expenditure that, you know, over a certain dollar amount, which we have a discussion about as we get into the technology update, infrastructure needs. So that was my only comment.
Motion to approve C.
For a second?
Second?
All right, all in favor of approving C?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And let's move on to number 5, the reports. And the first one, the 2012-13 calendar.
Okay, for the, Wendy and Joel are going to take the lead in the presentation, but we have principals at every level and teachers from every level that will also contribute as needed. So, and I know they've been working on it, so take it away.
Good evening. Our proposal tonight involves several elements. Our primary focus is to make some changes on how our district can work together to increase student achievement. You'll hear from administration, you'll hear from staff regarding professional learning communities, PLCs. We ask that you adopt a calendar allowing defined time for staff to meet, to review data and technique, time to work out essential interventions and enhancements geared to the individual student in the context of content relevant to his and her classroom. It's what we do, it's what we need to do. The feds and state are adamant that schools increase course rigor and relevance. We have to focus more on making our educational efforts help our students relate to content application and application to the world as a whole, not just our local area. We do a good job now, however we can and we really must do more. PLCs are collaborative. PLCs allow staff to spend that extra time working together at grade levels, within buildings, and across the district to coordinate instruction tailored for each student. Two common questions that I've heard recently are, why now? And why so suddenly? Whitnall's administrative team and teachers have talked about PLCs for years. And the fact is that Whitnall has been exploring PLCs for about 5 years. We've sent staff to learn about PLCs, what they are, how they work, and what they can do for us. Some elements of PLCs are currently in place, but this year it seems the mix and timing was right, and teachers were open about the needs for improving academic performance. PLCs were listed as a key element. The door was kind of opened in conversations at our administrative team meetings, and as a team, we came to the realizations that we could not wait another full implementation cycle to start the PLCs. If we don't move forward, our students could lose 18 months of intervention and supplemental activities. 18 months from now, our first graders will be going into 3rd grade, and so on as you roll it up the line. At that age, at every age, instructional moment is critically important, and the more we depend on what our teachers do, the more we need to get these PLCs going. As a team, we examined advantages of common schedules, planning time and movement towards clearly identified goals. PLCs will help us define those goals. We need time to focus on how we can improve student achievement time to analyze data together and in context, time to build and refine a model for continuous improvement. As you'll note on the screen, next one, literature has identified 4 essential questions that are the focus of PLCs.
What do we want students to learn? How will we know if they're learning it? And what steps can we take to help students understand and demonstrate content application and competency? And then last, what do we do if the student already knows what we're trying to teach them? Tonight you'll hear from practitioners, Wendy McQuiston, District Learning Coordinator, and our 4 principals, as well as staff members, will help guide us through some of the mechanics involved in our recommendations. Timing is important. Our teachers are ready, and they're receptive. This request isn't randomly sudden. It didn't occur overnight. We've just brought it to light now. Windmill has the opportunity to join high reliability and high achieving districts, locally and nationally, by implementing our recommendation for PLCs and the time it takes to do them. You'll hear from Krista Quisto and Roy Comas next, the elementary school principals. They'll have the next section, and they'll talk about PLCs in action. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd actually like Molly Fehrenbach to jump right up here, because one of the first things I'd like to do is talk about how over the course of the last 6 years our PLCs have been in action in the schools. And when we did this for the parents just a few short days ago, what I wanted to share was how we are implementing some of the new reading data and doing that collaboratively with both of the buildings.
Okay.
So, Molly?
All right. Wow. All right. Not to be put on the spot or anything. I was able to go to Lincolnshire to attend one of the PLC trainings quite a few years ago, and I'm really excited about the steps that we have in front of us. Formerly, before we started working with the PLC model, teachers did an excellent job. They worked really hard in their classrooms, but very much as kind of isolationists, as they're queens of their own classrooms or kings of their own classrooms. And now through this PLC model, we've been able to move to a more collaborative, responsive approach. In past years, we have collected reading data along the way, and each classroom teacher would collect their reading data and use that information to inform their instructional practices within their classroom. Now we're taking that data and taking a really hard look at it collaboratively with our colleagues, with vertical teams across the building, or with our own grade level teams. We take that data very seriously, and we make really important decisions based on what we're seeing in the classroom. I think the teaching staff has really embraced that and uses that data on an ongoing basis. In the past, in order to analyze all of that data, classroom teachers were often had to be taken out of their classrooms and substitutes were utilized. Teachers really want to be in their rooms. They don't want to lose that instructional time, and moving towards this PLC model will give us extended periods of time to look at the data that doesn't interrupt the flow of the instructional day. Does that help you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The model that we're looking at the elementary level would be 1 hour, once a week, early release model. The middle and the high school are looking at a late start model 2 times per month. Question is asked by some of the parents, why does elementary have more release time than the middle and high school? And it really has to do with the way our day is structured and the fact that at the middle and high school level there are different sets of problems that those teachers are dealing with, but at the same time they do have more time to collaborate within the school day. So the model as we presented kind of evens the playing field just a little bit with that collaborative time. And if we go to the next slide. And you can jump in at any point, Larry. The following are just a sampling of some of the districts that have an early release. I would argue that most, if not all, districts have an early release model. Wauwatosa and Elmbrook are 2 that have a very similar model to the one that we are proposing. Some of the other school districts have either a half day per month or multiple half days per month, or in some districts full days per month. So the collaborative model that we are describing, we feel on a weekly basis and or bi-weekly basis is an opportunity for us to be a little bit more responsive to student needs, collecting data in a timely fashion, and being able to impact students much quicker than if we were to meet once a month and then have to implement. So I don't know if you have anything more to add to that. Okay?
And some of the things that we'll be using the time for specifically really focus on those 4 essential questions. So this first slide really covers the whole idea about what do we want children to learn. You've been hearing as a board a lot about Common Core state standards, and we need to get into really the work of unpacking those, figuring out what we currently have with our curriculum, aligning curriculum, not only at grade levels, but across grade levels. And you're going to hear that theme constantly, I'm sure, throughout this presentation, that whole K-12 vertical alignment. If you want to hit the next slide. The next slide, the topics really are about, how will we know what students are learning and what steps are we going to take when they're not learning. And I think that what Chris described initially about, or excuse me, Molly stated about teachers out of their classroom. I asked a couple of teachers if they'd be willing to come tonight, not to put them on the spot, but the gentleman who was sitting behind me, Mr. Rogan, also attended the DeFore Cuff Weiss. He's not a slow learner, he was an eager learner. But the thing that I know that he's shared with me and maybe would want to publicly say is about being out of his classroom. Bill's got a lot to share. He's got great experiences, and he's one of those teachers that, although he's got great things that he does in his own classroom, he hates being out of his classroom away from his students. In fact, if you look at his attendance, I can't even remember a day he's been absent in the 7th year that I've been here, unless he really needed to be for something very important like a funeral, literally. He hates being out of his room. So this type of opportunity, he sometimes passes by opportunities to go to conferences or to do this kind of collaboration work, not because he's not interested, but because it takes him away from the kids. And I also, Nikki Nowak's here, and Nikki is kind of in a unique situation. Started teaching with us a few years back, teaching 3rd grade, and this year she switched over to kindergarten. Without that common systematic time in her day, while she's a great teacher, she's really doing the catch as catch can on what is that curriculum at the kindergarten level look like. And so these are opportunities to be with your colleagues in real time, not 3-4 weeks later after a situation has happened, but in real time, weekly, that you can work together on all those topics, those 4 essential questions. What do we want kids to know? How do we know they're learning them? And what are we going to do if they're not learning it or if they're advanced? Kind of like Amy's comment from the very beginning of the day. We've got kids that are accelerated learners. What are we doing for them? What are we able to do to make their day as full as possible? Not just, it's not just about how are we helping the kids who aren't getting it. That's important to us, but all kids are important to us.
Can you back up one?
Sure. Oh.
No. That consistency in curriculum, that's huge. That's something that unless we put in a collaborative model, particularly at elementary school where we have 2 buildings, it's really important that we get teachers together across the entire level so that no matter where your child is placed, in what classroom, similar instruction, similar assessments are going on in both places. We need a collaborative model to be able to do that. This model would allow us to be able to do that, and that is very critical. And the last slide. I wasn't planning to, but I could.
Okay.
I think the one to highlight there would be the second one, the comprehensive system of student interventions. 6 years ago when we started to head down to Lincolnshire, and for those that don't know, Lincolnshire is a very high-performing district in Illinois. They were a district very similar to ours about a number of years ago, achieving at about that 88, 90, 91% range. And their superintendent at the time said, that's great, folks, but we really can do better. And if we want to be a district that doesn't hover around 90 but can perform at those higher levels, we do have to put some sort of staff development model in place to make that change. We're doing good. Our kids do great. We have wonderful families and a phenomenal staff. If we want to take those scores, which are already high, and perform at a higher level, we have to look at a different staff development model than what we currently have. Something to add?
Okay.
All right, hi there. For the next section of our presentation, the building principals are going to speak a little bit to some of the parent communication that has taken place from the last board meeting to this one, because that was at your request that we do that, and we were certainly happy to set up those opportunities. And the other part that they will speak to is what the start and end times in our proposal will look like, not just on the late start or early release Wednesdays, but also what the regular start and end time will look like as well, because those are being adjusted for next year's schedule as well in this proposal.
Elementary schedule, we currently start at 8:40 and go to 3:22. And so basically ours is very similar with an 8:30 start. At HCE, for 2 years now, students have been coming into the building starting at 8:30 as opposed to what was formerly done, kind of a lineup system outside. So that time isn't all that off, and to be very honest with you, we have kids lined up ready to come in at 8:30. So that time is not much off. 8:40 to 3:22, we're actually gaining 3 minutes. And as Chris already mentioned, what our plan would be to finish our day at 2:15 on those Wednesdays.
At the middle school, our current day is 7:45 to 2:50. We would be moving to about an 8 o'clock to 3:05 start, and on those late collaborative days, we'd start at 9 o'clock, which, a side note, for the middle school, we have a number of staff members who coach either at the high school or at the middle level. So when we have staff meetings and department meetings after school, we're missing a number of teachers. This late start opportunity would allow me to have all those coaches around the table working with their colleagues. So I kind of think it's a good thing that everyone is taking part of the learning together.
Good evening, everybody. Apologize for my voice. It's not from cheering my favorite football team in their postseason, since they're not quite there. The current high school schedule is 7:15 to 2:18. The proposal for the shift in the schedule comes, first of all, it's research-based. If you don't want to look at the research, just walk through our halls at 7:15 in the morning, and there's definitely a different energy by 10 a.m. In a high school. But more importantly than that, as far as the regular schedule is concerned, right now our buses leave at about 2:25. So from 2:18 to 2:25, our students who take buses are running to their lockers, grabbing their stuff, and then heading out to the buses. So that basically eliminates those students from being able to participate in clubs or activities or getting academic support unless they have another way home. What we would like to do is take that no-fly zone from 2:18 till 3, which we currently have, and flex that to the morning. Our school start day would be at 7:45, but our buses would continue to arrive at 7 o'clock. There's a number of things that would do for us. Number one, clubs and activities can meet during that time, so all students can participate. Number two, all students have support academically through our academic support center, our library, and we'll have content labs, teachers available to work with them in specific areas. It provides us with intervention time through things such as guided study hall sessions. We have 0-hour possibilities in this particular scenario for things such as jazz band. Currently, it's offered after school. So we have a number of students who take jazz band after school, rush from jazz band to cross country, and they end up compromising either the cross country or the jazz band. This way, it's in the morning. Physical education makeups, no better way to wake kids up than to get them out exercising and running first thing in the morning, keeping that metabolism high. Enrichment and intensive intervention opportunities. Currently, we're looking at a model in Pewaukee where they have assigned guided study halls for students not quite making the grade. They also offer enrichment opportunities such as peer tutoring, ACT preparation courses, freshman transition programming, study skills, health habits, and those type of opportunities. So the shift in the actual school day of the regular day is more about a direct impact on kids and increased opportunities for them. The second and fourth Wednesdays, which is similar to actually the same as the middle school, but with a late start at 8:45, would, as everyone had mentioned previously, give our teachers continued opportunities to work in professional learning communities and professional teams, aligning our curricula and furthering a common curricula at the high school.
So after that leadership team met, and I know this went in front of the board as well, I think the assumption was, why is this coming so quickly? When in actuality, we've been having a lot of discussion about how to spend our collaborative time over the past several years. The board's probably heard pros and cons to half-days. The plan that we put in place is really being responsive to some of the concerns that you've heard about half-days by changing the model to the model that we're describing this evening. After we did send a letter to the families, it also went out on what was formerly Alert Now and now I think is IC Messenger to families. We had a forum both at both schools. Edgerton's was very well attended. I believe the Hales Corners was as well. We had about 50 families that were there. We had a good dialogue back and forth. We were able to listen to a number of the parent concerns, many of which were extremely helpful as we move forward in the development process. What I would say is that I think all of the staff, administration included, feel like this is something that would be very manageable for us to do and get the planning done for next year's implementation. I think I covered that. Okay.
At the middle level, a letter was sent out to the parents, very similar to the letter that was sent to the elementary parents through Infinite Campus. Also, at part of my parent newsletter, we did have a notification about a parent coffee that was held last Friday, and we also sent a reminder notice through Infinite Campus. The coffee had very good discussion. A lot of questions were answered. I would have to say the response from the parents wasn't overall negative. It was positive. They understand the need for the collaboration time, but there was just some logistic answers that they still needed answers. Will the buses run for my son or daughter so they can get there? Can they get to school early, and what would be available for them early? And those are all things that I'm willing to work on with them to provide some sort of supervision opportunity for kids who mom and dad might not feel they're ready to get on the bus all by themselves because they're just not there yet, to provide something for them at school so that if mom or dad drops them off at the normal time, they have an opportunity for a study hall or an intramural activity or a number of enrichment ideas I've thought of already. So if that is certainly something parents would indicate to me that they need, I would certainly be willing to work with the district to find opportunities for those kids.
Communication with parents as well as others at the high school. We used to have a parent forum at the high school, which was a general format. It was very lowly attended and started dwindling rather quickly. I saw that as a positive. Not quite as many issues coming up. So what we did do is we look at a shared governance structure at the high school. And we have a site council, department chairs, school climate committee, and staff development committee, as well as our student senate. They all offer insight and input into the decisions that we make, and we as an administrative team make decisions based upon their input. So our site council, actually this came up at a parent forum when I started here 3 years ago, the issue of moving the start time later. So it's been a very long time in the running, but it was finalized with a recommendation from our site council on December 8th, which consists of parents, staff, and students. Our department chairs, our school climate committee, our staff development committee all gave their input and saw the benefit in this model. And then, of course, our student senate, who have breakfast with Brzezowski once a month, bribing them to come in early to school with breakfast always works. And they were more than happy to start the school day at 7:45, but they also did see a lot of benefit in all those activities and clubs before school. So.
A number of concerns have been expressed. For instance, are the students getting the required amount of classroom hours? Answer is yes. Would there be after-school options for elementary students? And the answer is yes. And how would busing work? We hope it works very well. It's a matter of how you time it. what works best for the individual and family. At this point, we're set up so that the buses will run at the early time, and the students will, at the elementary, will have the option of staying, being picked up by parents, or going home at the early release time. A couple of options there. So schools actually exceed the number of instructional minutes required by DPI, and that's a very important thing to note. It's kind of neat. And we know that there's a lot of planning that's going to be involved with families. For some people, it could be a difficult situation getting to school early enough or getting home early enough to meet their kids at home when they get home from school. But we're hoping that people will work together and either have the kids stay at the school for the extra hour or work as a community to find places for the kids to go, maybe carpool home, go over to a friend's house, alternate, things of that sort. A lot of options are available. We're looking at a no-cost option, independent group activities, with perhaps a low-cost option for additional activities for which there may be a cost recovery fee required. I don't think we want to promise no fees at all ever, but there will always be an option at no fee. We understand how tight some things are for people right now. Had quite a weekend talking to some friends of mine who, quite frankly, I wouldn't have expected to be in a financial bind, but when they were talking a couple of kids, $100 a month, it was pretty substantial to them at this point, and we want to be very careful that we are considerate of the community. They are our constituency, and we want to make sure that we're not hurting anybody as a family when we're trying to help their children. Bus routes would run as usual on Wednesday for elementary, just 1 hour earlier. Students would return home immediately following early release or stay at the school if they chose and be picked up later by parents or however they made the arrangements. Middle and high school AM buses would be adjusted for the late start, second and fourth Wednesdays. They would go home at the regular time. I do want to key in on the fact that if students stay for that extra hour of enrichment, that it will be the parents' responsibility to make arrangements for them to get home from school. And some helpful resources. Wendy's been very instrumental in compiling all of this, and she found some of the resources that go to the questions we've got about professional learning communities, etc. These will be available if anybody wants a list of these. Contact me. I'll be happy to send it out. It's not an issue. However, we can help people make up their mind to understand what we're doing and that it is in the best interests of the districts and the kids overall. We're happy to work with you. Does the board have? Okay. If there are any questions, Wendy and I and the rest of the team are available at your convenience. Thank you.
I guess I just want to really acknowledge, too, Jill Matuson is here. She helped with the presentation at the forum. Dee Schrader is not here. She also helped me. Amy Koenigs was there as well, so they were part of that forum. Who else I have? Mary Podlaski, who just came for moral support. It's just some other teachers that are here as well. So I don't know if anybody has questions, or maybe they can help in the Q&A if you have any.
It really is important for everybody to understand that this isn't just the administration saying, here's what we want to do. This is kind of welled up in the past. It's been going on for a lot of months, a lot of years, and really it's been under the surface. We're bringing it to light. It's very positive, it's very strong, it's very good for kids. And so again, we'd ask you to consider it seriously and accept our proposal. Other questions or concerns?
From the board?
I have just a logistical question. Mr. Brzezowski, I think you said that the buses on the late arrivals would still run at the early hour?
No, I did not. The late start, they would arrive at 8:25.
Okay. Okay, got it.
They would arrive at the early hour on a regular basis at 7, but on the late start, it would be 8:25.
Okay.
So every day that we start at 7:45, they'll still come at 7, so everyone can access academic support. But on the late start days,
we don't want them there till 8:20.
We won't have them there until
Okay, that's where I got confused. All right, thank you.
Yes.
I have two questions. But first of all, thanks for all the work. We have an incredibly dedicated staff that work in the best interests of our kids every single day, and I'm grateful for that, so thank you for all the work you put in on this project. I was able to attend 2 of the parent forums and got feedback on the 3rd, and some of the questions that I have coming out of there and some of the things that some of the parents have asked me about is that with the early release at the elementary, but keeping the release at the middle school consistent, we have older kids coming home after younger ones. When in an ideal situation, you'd have the older kids come home first so they can greet the young ones in the door. And that one piece would eliminate a lot of stress for some families, knowing that the older kids were getting home first. So that was with this model, that was one of the things that I had a question about, if that's what would be in place for those types of issues. And the other one was just an overall concern that we're putting the plan forward, and by the way, nobody that I've spoken to, staff or parent, has said that the concept is a bad idea. Everybody is excited about getting our kids more working time with the teachers, getting the responsiveness. They're really excited that we're doing this for the kids. They think it's a great idea. But the impact on families can't be dismissed either. So we're asking families to make decisions, financial decisions, without giving them any concrete answers of cost. And for some of the families that I spoke to, that's actually very scary. And in an economy where the amount of kids and families that need assistance is continually growing instead of being reduced, I don't want to overlook that because that's too important to our families, to make sure that financially they're taken care of. So those are the 2 biggest concerns I have, is with the early release model for the elementary school, that we're having the younger ones come home before the elder ones, and then not having a little bit stronger of a grip on the financial impact, and yet asking the board to make a decision on behalf of our families before they have the numbers they need.
Yep. I'll start with the cost issue. That was one of the things we talked about a lot, because I heard that at the middle school one and from elementary principals. And so that's why we thought it was really important to have the no-cost option. And it's actually something Chris brought from Wauwatosa, where they have, if you do want to have, sign up for classes through the Y or something, you can do those at the same time as well. So we wanted to at least put that concern, which is a very valid concern, to rest if we could. It doesn't eliminate having to figure out the logistics for the transportation for the kids, which that also came up. In that, if parents didn't like, they rearranged their schedule. I heard a gentleman that rearranged his schedule so that he could be home by whatever it is, 3:45 when the kids get there. And the difference here is, if they don't take the bus, rather than meeting them at home, they would have to come pick up the kids. So it wouldn't be like, I was going to talk, well, we did talk a little bit at the admin team meeting. It's not the hour's up, the kids get kicked out the door no matter what. It's just like any other day where the kids have to have a plan in place. I think they turn that into their teachers probably at the beginning of the year if it's a typical elementary school, and they have to have a plan in place for those days as well. So we, at least for the safety of the kids, we know that. And then the second question, I was thinking, why we switched to maybe Lori and Chris could talk to that, the older kids getting home after the younger kids. We switched from last time an early release, or late start, to an early release. Can you maybe address that part?
Well, I mean, yeah. What? I think all the parents that we heard from said that a late start for elementary was just, would be very difficult for them as a family to be able to do. But there is more flexibility at the end of the day. Speaking on the point of Wauwatosa and some of the other offerings, we've been in contact with some of the districts that do this. Some of them have pretty comprehensive plans already. Some of them have tiered plans, like a free option plan, a low-cost option plan. They might be a little bit different, One of the parent concerns that I heard was that if they're going to be in school for an hour, let's make sure that it's an enriching time for them. So there was some discussion that, for instance, the YMCA or some of the other organizations do is run music, art, chess clubs, and other forms of enrichment activities, so that's valuable time for the students if they are to stay in school for that additional hour. So I guess what Whitmer would do would be to put into place what many other districts had to grapple with when they did the similar plan, which is take a look at all of our options, make sure that we have low cost, and then, as we're saying, no cost options, and then clearly communicate those to families. But how quickly this came about required, given the fact that we have to get a calendar put in place, course offerings at the high school and for various reasons, that's why it came in front of the board. It was a very good idea to have the parent forums. The parent forums were very valuable. Something else that came up in the parent forum, let's make sure that we are surveying families. How is this working for them as we move forward next year? Let's make sure we are surveying staff. How is this staff development model working for you as we move forward? So a lot of communication in the months ahead if we go through. Getting all of those logistics worked out, communicating those logistics, and then making sure that we're having continuous communication, not only through this year, but as we move forward with this model into next year.
Questions? Bill?
Probably this one's for Wendy. You having done the research, I assume, with other districts, what did they find were the most common problems they faced, and how did they deal with those?
In terms of the actual nuts and bolts of the implementation?
Yes.
Well, in some districts, they have gone through some kind of cooperative parent, staff, community committee work to see possibly taking parent surveys, that kind of thing, to do some information gathering before actually embarking upon something like this. Other districts have just brought it up as part of calendar committee, and it was voted yes or no, and there really wasn't a whole lot of parent involvement in the discussion. The main concerns that come up, I think, in any of those districts that were listed would be the same ones that we're noticing when there's a change like this. The immediate concerns would be the additional cost and how does it affect the family schedules. All of the districts that we've looked into have information on what they use their PLC time for, and some of them, even within their website, list achievement data. Not that you can necessarily tie achievement data to PLC specifically, but they speak to the benefits that they're noticing, the day-to-day benefits and the cumulative benefits that they're noticing, in large part because of the PLCs. Another thing I can speak to is on that last resource page here, right there. These two resources, the second and third, are off of a website called All Things PLC. And as I was researching this particular website, there was a feature that allowed you to type in how many kids are in your district and what are some sorts of demographic information, free and reduced lunch percentages and that kind of thing. And then it would kick out a comparable school or a comparable school district. And then when you click on that school district that it provides, these two, the elementary, I believe, is from Washington State, and the high school example is from Connecticut, I believe. They'll give you all the demographics of the district. They'll give you what things were in place in order to make the PLCs possible and what benefits that they are noticing as a result. And those two websites will give very specific achievement data tracking information. And each of the districts that are part of this website, this database, had to pass certain criteria in order for them to be labeled a PLC district that could be included in the website.
Anyone else? Bill?
To sort of fall on the heels of that, I'm curious for each of the principals, how many people did you actually have at your forums, and what were their primary concerns?
I didn't take a number count at HCE, but
I won't hold you to the, because we don't know if it's like 5.
But I want to say that Jane Leonard and Chris Romine were there, and I think they said that we were in about the vicinity of 20, and I see a couple of the parents that were here, that were there as well. I think chief concerns are just, I at least heard predominantly were the logistics, and how can this happen without cost to the families. Some of the things that we've put into place kind of piggyback on some of the after-school opportunities that I've actually already started researching, the chess scholars group that would like to come in and do some after-school activities with us. A couple of years ago, it was 2 years ago, maybe 3, we started after-school Spanish for our students. We would move that Spanish class to that day, perhaps, as an idea. You know, so there are things like that that we could bring in that kids could be engaged in that they're already doing on other days of the week. But I think predominantly what I heard was, you know, that families really have perhaps limited time to take off. I actually did also hear that some families said we didn't know it was an either or. Had we known that half days, you know, maybe half days wouldn't be such a bad option if we would have known it was, if there was a choice there. Someone brought up even full days. So the thought of surveying parents about which option would work best for them. That's what I heard at HCE. I mean, those parents that are here might want to speak to that eventually. I got it.
I think I mentioned we had about 50 parents. I just would echo what Larry said. I heard the very same concerns. There were some concerns. I'll just mention them. Why not have teachers come in earlier in the morning? Why not just have teachers and other staff stay longer in the evening? We had a lot of dialogue about that, and I think sometimes we don't do a good enough job communicating how our mornings and afternoons are spent. Most of our mornings at the elementary school are chock full of meetings. We have our student intervention meetings with students who might be struggling or students in need of enrichment. We have IEP team meetings. Those almost always have to take place in the morning because those are that's the best time for parents to be able to meet. After school, we have even before school and after school, we have a number of student options that are going on, including after-school math tutoring, which our staff is involved with, before and after-school reading tutoring, which our staff does, coaching, which our staff is involved with as well, various district-level committees and or other committee work within the school that our staff is involved with. So if you try to do a before or an after-school meeting, you're never getting all of the staff, you're only getting some of the staff. That's why, as you hear PLCs and why they build it into their regular schedule, is because we want everybody at the table and present.
At the middle school, I didn't take count, but I'd say probably close to a dozen parents at the coffee, which for the middle school is huge. I'm lucky some days if I get one. So thank you to all those who came. Predominantly, the conversation was pretty positive. It was logistical questions. You know, will the buses run? What if I can't? You know, I don't want my son or daughter getting on the bus because I don't feel they're ready, which, you know, 6th graders, they're still 11. Some 11-year-olds are perfectly independent and can do it, and some aren't. So I understand that and would certainly support looking for opportunities at the middle school similar to what the elementaries would offer. I did, in my letter, offer parents the opportunity to give me feedback, to call or send me an email with their thoughts, and I probably received at least a dozen emails and a couple of phone calls. They were predominantly positive logistical questions. Again, I think I had one that said absolutely not. So, you know, I echo everything Chris says. My teachers are in IEP meetings, they're coaching, they're doing this and that. Just having everybody there and knowing that you're going to have everybody there is what really is what we need.
Probably can't hear me from right there. So our site council has 4 or 5 parents on it. The parent forum, where it originally came up, had 15, 20 each time that it had come up before then. The concerns that were brought up, the biggest concern was the effects on practices after school. We don't start practices until 3 o'clock currently, so actually it would give us a little bit more of a start time. Other questions that came up were classes that we co-op currently. The Greenfield High School, for example, we have students who go for Project Lead the Way, and actually this works out really well because it's first hour. So instead of our kids getting to school late and missing having to be scheduled for a study hall, for example, first hour, they would actually be able to have enough time to get back here comfortably by the time of second hour. And the other question that came up was, what do we do in the morning with all these kids? And I said, well, they're all here every day at that time anyway. So the increased supervision basically is just flip-flopping the day from what we currently have in the no-fly zone at the end and moving it to the morning. So we would have cafeteria availability, we'd have library availability. We were looking at changing our structure on academic support so that students would have one central classroom per content area rather than going to individual teachers. And that way, many lessons can be done and those types of things.
The one question that I have is probably for Lynn and the elementary school principals. I know we had talked about having the late start time for all of the schools originally, and that was so that the elementary teachers could work with the middle school teachers. So with the difference and the change now, how will that work?
Well, we talked about the fact that between the 6th grades that we have at our elementary and actually the 7th being the core 4, we've got a lot of work to do between our 2 buildings, at least for this first year or more. And we're hopeful that we will be able to utilize now next year's calendar, the one that I know is in front of you, has one day in February maybe. That's an in-service day, and that's it. We were hoping that we would utilize days like that, which obviously next year's calendar is not days, it's day. So I'm not exactly sure, how much we will be needing to get vertically towards the 6th grade as much as within the elementary grades at this point. We probably need to think creatively about that 5th to 6th grade leap, but at this point, with only one day next year in that calendar, that might be, very limited, obviously.
Having all schools do a late start wasn't going to give us enough
time
to be able to do really comprehensive work. And so looking at the amount of time that we would have had if we all went to a late start versus the many concerns that were expressed by the parents, we made the decision, because I know the last time it came from the board, I believe it was discussed that everybody would be a late start. Well, immediately I started hearing from people, and it was, and what I heard was, an early release is what we would need at the elementary level. And frankly, there just wasn't enough time built into that framework that we wouldn't try to meet the parent request because of the burden, the extra burden that it would place on the morning time.
Okay. The comments from the audience?
How will the benefit of this be quantified? Will there be any sort of a dashboard?
Just wait a minute. You need to come up to the microphone and state your name.
Okay.
Hi, Chris Lowing. How will the benefit of this be quantified? And will there be some sort of a dashboard perhaps on the website so we can see results from this? Also, when you have these weekly meetings, will there be any results of, any sort of reporting from that so we can kind of see what's going on, what's being discussed, and, perhaps be able to email one of the teachers or the principal, our thoughts?
When you say results, you talk about student achievement results?
Yeah, tying that to how the students are doing, and to
starting point, and you want to see some progression.
Yeah, so you can see that this is actually having a positive impact, aside from the teachers being able to collaborate, that's translating into, something identifiable.
Joel?
I can address that. Also, one of the things that we've implemented this year is MAPS. It's an assessment program. It's live time, 3 times a year. And with the PLCs, we'll be able to take the data that we get on each individual student at least 3 times a year, go over it, suggest interventions or enhancements on a very timely basis so that we can see over the year perhaps some growth, or at least know that the interventions need to be changed in a more timely way so that we're not wasting student time, we're not wasting teacher time, but we're addressing issues now. And the way it is with most of the testing data, or assessment data, if you want to be politically correct, is you don't see that right away. It does take a little bit of time for it to log into the system. A student who no longer reverses some of the images that they're doing when they're reading, you may not see that for an assessment or two down the line until it fully kicks in. So I want to caution that we're not going to see results tomorrow on an intervention that we will unlikely to see substantial results tomorrow on an intervention that we put in place today. It will take a little bit of time, but we'll see it. I don't know if that answers your question fully, but we're aware of what you're looking at, and this is one of the best ways out there to do it.
Was there any thought to phasing this in so you can work out the kinks as you progress maybe through full implementation of it, as opposed to just diving into it?
Well, there isn't really. Okay. You either get in, it's you're all in or you're not.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jeff Teely. My address is 2421 West Grange. I just want to say thanks for giving us this opportunity to talk to you. I love this school district. I love the teachers. I think they do a great job. I personally couldn't do it, but I want you guys to take into consideration the thoughts from the parents. Now, I went to the Hales Corners Elementary one. I would have loved to come to the middle school one, but I worked during the day, and 9 o'clock coffee doesn't cut it for me. And being that there's only 12 parents there, I think it didn't cut it for the rest of the school either. We want the PLCs, okay, and I'm not a representative of the entire group of people that were at Hales Corners, but I can tell you what I was there and what I heard. We want the PLCs. We think it's a great opportunity for the teachers to get together and make a learning environment better for our children, okay? The logistics stink. I listened to what Joe said. We had great conversations the other day. I know Mr. D'Acquisto. I listened to what he said here tonight. If the teachers of this school district have been looking at this for several years, as they say, why weren't the logistics being done then for several years? Now, I realize things change, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to be technical, okay? Giving it to us in one meeting and saying we want this to go doesn't fly. Now, when it comes to the elementary school, the time difference wouldn't matter for me. Who's watching my child from 2:15 to 3:15? Whether he's playing kickball or he's taking an extra violin lesson, I'm fine with that. Some parents say, who's going to pay for it? Okay. When it comes to the middle school, I have a child in middle school. WMS has absolutely zero care, if you want to call it. I know care is a bad word. Joe talked about don't use care, child care. But my kid is 11. Who's watching my son? What's he going to do? Right now, there is no child care at all at WMS. And a late start would really be bad for me and my wife. It's bad enough she's got to fly downtown after dropping my kid off at 7:30. I listen to the teachers up here, and I think that they're trying. We all think it's good. Like I said, who's going to pay for it? What are you going to do when it comes to before or after school? If you're going to have these programs like music or the math and reading labs like Mr. D'Acquisto said, well, who's going to teach a couple of hundred kids that? If your staff is supposed to be in the PLC, who are you using to teach the kids or watch the kids or play kickball with the kids? I mean, I don't think you've got that many aides. I mean, I don't know, but I'm assuming you don't have that many aides. Who's watching all those kids? Who's going to do it if the staff is supposed to be in the PLC? And the other thing I wanted to bring up was the intermingling of the schools. I think that's also a great idea. What is Hales Corners doing differently than, Edgerton is? But when you look at it, doing it 1 hour a week, by the time you get those kids out of school, get the teachers in their cars to get over to one school or the other, well, you've blown 20 minutes of an hour's worth of early dismissal. I would rather see it a half a day like Franklin does. My boy used to go to Franklin before. I fought like heck to get him into this school district because I love this place. a half a day at Whitnall. I'd rather see it a half a day, or even a full day, where K through 12 could get together once in a while. One of my coworkers has a son that goes to Brookfield. They do early release every week. You want to talk about a logistical nightmare for families that have two parents that work? I'm just giving you our opinion. That's ridiculous. 1 hour a week I don't think is going to cut it either. By the time you get rid of all the kids on buses, you've cut that PLC time down. Most of the parents, in fact, all the parents at Hales Corners, again, I'm not a representative, we all love the idea of PLCs. I think it's great for the teachers. I think it's even better for the kids. I would rather see them put together a logistical plan where the why is going to be there for you, or these are the people that are going to do it, and this is what it's going to cost, so that the parents will be able to say to you, yeah, let's do it. Let's do Plan A or Plan B or Plan C. And again, I think that should have been in place if the teachers have been looking at this for several years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we do a point counterpoint or no? Okay, the several years with staff, when you're going to become a professional learning community, you have to put a lot of pieces in place first before let's go to this level of planning, because what are we planning around? So we spent a lot of time with creating learning targets. Now, what are the common assessments we are going to use grade level to be able to track progress? We brought in that math screener. By the way, Wisconsin is demanding now a screener at all levels. We're putting in something in place this year. So it wasn't that per PLC in the term of an early release was a 6-year concept. It was putting all of the PLC concepts into place, all of the interventions that we put into place to be able to say, okay, now this time will be really valuable. The point about 1 hour. Well, the staff is actually staying beyond that hour. So yes, absolutely, I'm sure as Mrs. Schrader said, she wants to be able to use the bathroom, get her Diet Coke. And then, we will in some cases have to go from over to one school or the other. But in those cases, we are extending the day for staff. So it's not like at 3:15 they're gone. They'd be here an additional hour beyond that. I'm trying to think of some of the other points. When I was bringing up the before and after school reading and math intervention, that's what staff do currently. Those are things that might not be in place if we change the model to a come in earlier, stay later. However, we would have to put in a plan that would include the Y or the rec departments or some of those other pieces, along with a no-cost option. It may include some staff as well. So it would be more of a tiered option, but definitely if the staff are involved in the professional learning community time, they cannot be watching students. Am I missing any? I'm trying to remember all of the points. Because this is the same conversation and discussion that was going on at the parent forums. Many of the same concerns were expressed, and there was just more of an opportunity at that forum to be able to have that interaction, to be able to address the questions.
If I could just make one more comment. I think that if the teachers and the school board want to really sell it to the parents and get the full 100% backing, I would respectfully request that they put together, like I said, a couple of different plans and present it to the parents and say, this is what Plan A is, this is what Plan B is, this is what Plan C is, and have those things in place already. Most everybody was like, again, is the YMCA going to offer something at WMS? Are you going to have the aides do this? I really think that if you want to sell it to the parents, I really think that there should be plans put in place again, and I would respectfully request the board take that into consideration. We want the PLCs. Again, this is a logistical nightmare, and at least for the parents it is, and I think it'd be easier to sell if you gave us more options than just, well, we're going to start early and come in late or do whatever and get them done then, and nobody knows where your kids are going to be or what we're going to do or who's going to watch them. So just please take that into consideration. Thank you again. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Sandra Bass, and I am a Whitnall Middle School special ed aide. I am also a parent of a middle school 6th grader and of a 5th grader who is special ed himself. at the last meeting when we talked, the original proposal was that we have delayed start across the board for elementary as well. I did send an email to some of the administrators stating my concerns as to how would a parent get their child ready. How would anyone pay for this? To utilize the YMCA 1 day a week for half an hour, which I did last year, cost me $91 a month. And I thought that was really an unfair cost, that we would be asking parents, if they were going to use a morning Y program, to have to pay $91 a month, just so that the teachers could meet in the morning and the students would have a later start. At the last parent forum, they did state that they had since changed their proposal and that they are recommending an early release. That is something I think is far more feasible, because if a student is attending the YMCA, it's by the day. So any parent that is using the Y at the end of the school day is not going to pay any more money whether their child goes there for 2 hours or 3 hours. It is also easier for parents to find other arrangements with family members or play dates for their elementary student at the end of the day, as opposed to 8 o'clock in the morning. Having said that, I think that the idea of having a collaborative release weekly is a wonderful idea, or bi-weekly for the middle school and high school. It would give everyone an opportunity to address concerns that are happening immediately rather than a month later. It would also allow for less need for substitutes in the building, because right now we have a lot of subs during team meetings. And I think that rather than having the subs for these team meetings, we can address some of these concerns at the end of the day or beginning of the morning, whatever the case may be. My biggest concern, though, is having a child at the middle school who, first of all, if I have to be at work at 8 o'clock in the morning, how am I going to get my kid to school? My child does not live close enough to walk. They can't take the bus because we're open enrollment. How do I get my kid here? I've got to be to work. And I think I'm not the only parent who has these concerns. How do I ensure that my child, whether they're 11 years old, 14 years old, 18 years old, how do I know that they're up, ready, and to school in a timely fashion? The biggest concern being these new coming 6th graders at the middle school. You know, not a lot of these kids are ready to take on that kind of responsibility, and technically they're still in an age where they need a babysitter. So I think to have a delayed start at the middle school is just unwise. Some of the other concerns that we had were sort of addressed already. We had talked about how are we going to have consistency between the elementary school and the middle schools if we have different meeting times. That was one of the proposals last month that sounded like a positive. This is great. The elementary school can meet with the middle school. We can talk about transitioning. We can talk about curriculum going across the board. If we have different meeting times, that's not going to happen. Another concern was who's going to be taking care of these kids. Whether it be a delayed start or an early release, I think, as you can hear, a lot of the parents are really concerned about what are we going to do with these children. So in my mind, I think it would be personally a better idea to have an early release across the board. People wouldn't have to worry about their younger child getting home before an older student. They wouldn't have to worry about as much child care. A middle schooler and a high schooler can get home the same way, whether it be at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, if they walk or take the bus. And lastly, when I asked why they didn't want to do this, why didn't we want to have, early release all the way across the board, the biggest reason given to me was sports. We didn't want it to interfere with the coaches. I find it very condescending to say that we would rather inconvenience every parent of a middle schooler and high schooler and their work schedule rather than inconveniencing a coach who maybe teaches cross-country for 6 weeks or football for 2 months, where they might only miss 4 practices or show up late for 4 practices. And there are assistant coaches and there are parent helpers that can help out with this. So I find that to be inexcusable that this is being done for sports. So I hope you take some of these things into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or anything new to add?
Hello, I'm Dan Knobloch, 4683 South 112th Street. I have two questions, basically. Number one, the PLC program, from what I heard, it's a program that's going to, I mean, as much as everyone's tried to, there's going to be a cost added to the parents. I don't see how that's not going to happen. So in light of that, is there some kind of way to measure, like the first speaker said, is there some kind of gauge to figure out if this is doing something? Because I heard that the PLCs might not necessarily affect the assessment scores, I think. Ma'am, you may have said that in the, did I hear you right?
Well, when you look at achievement data, there's school districts are constantly trying to improve, inherently improve their structures to improve student achievement. So it's really difficult to isolate one improvement that is the causal relationship between where we were with achievement and where we will be. What you can do is qualitatively describe the improvements. You can look at student achievement data, but that will be kind of a compilation of all the improvements in addition to the PLC work that a district has put in place over that window.
Right.
So it's just kind of the nature of the beast that's what makes it difficult to isolate
it's hard to
that one
quantify.
part out.
And then I heard that you might not see anything for a year or 2 or 3, or, I mean, because we have school districts here that have it for last year, right? And
they've had it for many years in most cases. And what we're looking at basically is systemic change. And systemic change takes just that little scooch longer. Right. I mean, we're trying to put things in place that if you don't see it today, as the kids go through the system, you'll see that change. You'll see that increase, see that difference. And to isolate it and say that's the cause, as Wendy said, you can't always pick a cause. Throw a couple rocks in a pond, lots of ripples. You don't know which one moved the leaf necessarily. And that's what we're looking at.
so, well, I guess what I'm getting from it is we have a program that's going to add costs to the parents that we might not, we have a hard time trying to figure out if it's working, basically, right? Because there's going to be...
You're making, if I may, go ahead. You're making an assumption that there will be cost to parents. For some parents, there may be some cost, but the costs will not be directly, as a result, directly to pay for whatever goes on at the school. Right. It's an additional child care cost. That's, again, we're sensitive to that. We understand that. And what we would do is encourage the community to look at ways that if your neighbor's kid's coming home at 2:15 and your kid's coming home at 2:15, maybe one of you or another neighbor can be the one that receives the kid. There are a lot of kids who go home right now to empty houses.
Yeah, that's
and it's an unfortunate situation, and we're trying not to exacerbate it. But it's a consideration. And this may help the community pull together and provide some of those internal resources to help the kids as they come home.
Possibly. Right. The other point I wanted to make is, there was a slide that said that the number of hours and structural hours is going to be, will satisfy the state of the DPI. Do we know, has there been a comparison versus the number of hours that the kids had before versus what happens now? I mean, I'm guessing both would be above the minimum, but I would hope that would be...
Well, in our proposal, actually, Dan has us increasing a day.
Okay.
An additional student contact day. And then, like you saw, some of the hours, like the elementary for sure, they actually have a longer student contact day. And the no-cost option, when I was explaining it, I wanted the elementaries to be able to hear the parents and work through the issues, because it really was a teacher and principal-driven kind of proposal. When I was at the middle school with Lynn and during her coffee time, I was able to address that. Who's going to be with our kids? The question that Jeff brought up as well, who's doing it. When I was talking with Chris, an example, using his as the easiest example, in Edgerton, if he has 8 student aides, teacher aides, they would be employed during that period of time irregardless, so there would not be an additional cost to the district. We would like as I told Carol, and Carol has told me many times, as much as possible, I'd like to have them involved in the PLC discussions. However, if the cost is an issue, the best way to neutralize that cost is to use resources that we already have. You know, trained resources that already are going outside with your kids on a regular basis, in the classroom with your kids on a regular basis. They're an extremely talented group of individuals that we would, on a rotating basis, have them provide the no-cost option. The ones that, once you start throwing options out for principals, they get very creative. Opportunities for Spanish, opportunities for this or that or the other thing. We've talked to, Matt Carson has even been involved with this, the building and grounds person, talking to the Y, and also with Park and Rec, that typically they rent space from us, which is why, because they're a for-profit, well, I don't know if the Y's not for-profit, but they're going to make a profit. People. But those options would be like the icing on the cake. So if you wanted to, they would provide low-cost options because we wouldn't charge them rental time because it's a service to our parents during that we're creating. That period of time that we're creating, it's not you creating it.
Right.
So I thought it was very important that we'd be able to look Dan Knobloch in the eye and say, if you really want no cost additionally for the watching your kids during that period of time, we'll provide it. The logistics, we try to be upfront as possible as far as the busing goes. You're still going to have to make a change there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of my point. I mean, if you're an hourly worker, regardless if you don't have to pay anything out of your pocket, you lose your pay when you got to get your kid from school. So my point is there's going to be a cost put on the family. Now, we can argue, stuff, but that's fine. What I don't understand is if you release an hour a week early, there's 33, 34 weeks in the school year, roughly 35, whatever that is. 30-some hours of instructional time. You're saying there's more?
We added a day into the schedule.
Okay.
Tom actually is the one that does the minutes of, did you do a comparison?
Sure. As Dr. Holtz said, we're required to have 180 days, and that's what we've had previously. For this calendar that's being proposed, there's 181 student contact days. Hours of instruction at the middle school and high school, we're required to have 1,137 hours of instruction.
Okay.
Currently at the middle school, we have 1,147. At the high school, 1,150.
Okay.
With the proposed calendar, with the late start at the middle school and high school, they would both have 1,146.
Okay, but the elementary school is twice as long.
And the elementary is only required to have 1,050 hours.
Okay.
We currently have 1,086 hours of time, and under this proposal, it would be 1,071. So it does go down by 15 hours, but it's not an hour a week across the whole time because of the way the schedule is.
Okay. So that's, what is that, 3 days, 4 days, 3.5?
No, just over 2. Yeah, 2.5.
Of instructional time. Okay. So I guess that's, my question and my concern is, we're paying for something, I have a child in elementary school, we're paying something, we're going to have less time actually in front of the teacher, that's going to cost something for me, and I don't see how we know it's good.
Well, a couple things. One, with this model, we would still be 3 days over the state average, or the state expected, the state number of days, about 3 days. I guess I'd like the teachers to take up the topic of the assessment part of this, because it's not only the assessment that Mr. Green's talking about, it's kind of the day-to-day ongoing assessments that your kids are being given by their teachers all the time. So I don't know.
I could speak to that.
Okay.
Touch base on that.
For example, let's take kindergarten as an example. Research shows that the #1 indicator of being able to learn to read is alphabetic principle combined with phonological awareness. So we as a staff then get together and develop common formative assessments. So it's going to form our instruction. It's going to tell us what we need to do. So for example, one subtopic of phonological awareness is segmenting and blending. So then the staff would get together and talk about developing an assessment that would allow us to find out, are the kids able to segment and blend sounds? Then we take that data and we look at it and we say, okay, this is a group of children who have this down pat, they're ready to do this. This is a group of children who are right where we're expected them to be. Here's a group of children who are struggling with this concept. And then it forms our instruction. It tells us what we need to do in order to allow them to meet the benchmark. So it's not like, it might not come out and show us that our math scores are now, we've got 90% of our kids scoring above that, but what it's going to do, it's going to inform our instruction so that we're better able to meet individual children's needs on an ongoing, day-by-day basis. Does that make sense?
So imagine 3 times a year when we're going and looking at the student data now, we're pulling teachers out of their classrooms to access this data and to take the time to figure out what it all means. We'd have that time built in now where we're not pulling staff out of their classrooms with a substitute teacher, and it would be on a more regular basis. So I would say just the opposite. Not what Mr. Green is saying is absolutely true from a systemic standpoint over many years, but I think we'll see immediate change in the classroom, immediate instructional change. That's the purpose.
I can offer from the high school perspective, because fortunately for us, we've been able to build in common preps for high school folks. We have just a different day, so we can do that. And since we've been utilizing those, for any of you who have high school age kids, you saw we have common core syllabi for the first time that we're aware of. So we know that teachers are teaching the same things and getting kids to the same points. They're doing it in a different way so that they can individualize it for kids. We're finally at a point where our experiment, for lack of a better word, has limited variables, if that makes any sense. In the past, you have different teachers, different tests, different things going on in the classroom. If we get together and talk about how kids are doing, we don't have any control. We don't necessarily know which variables are impacting it. When you have these PLCs and this PLC time, teachers come together, you generate a common assessment, one common test or essay, whatever it may be, common expectations, and then you can sit down in the room with everybody's results and see where kids perform strongly, where there may have been gaps, exactly as that PLC talks about, and then brainstorm what exactly you'll be able to do about that. And I can tell you from high school, we've been slowly been able to work that into our limited time with common preps. But, again, it's very slow. We sure can't get it as quickly as we possibly could without some release time. And I'm a little bit slow on cold medication, but I wanted to respond earlier. Just to be clear, the secondary recommendation for the late start is not simply for coaches, it's also for students. Students who can't go home wouldn't be able to come back for their activities, number one. Number two, it's about time and allocated resources from the district. If we had an early release, we would only gain 60 minutes of PLC time, for lack of a better word. That would be from 1:45 until 3. As somebody pointed out, 15 minutes to get the building cleared out is a good day. So 1:45, so it would be 2 to 3. In the morning, no one's in the building, so we have from 7 o'clock until 8:30, and then 15 minutes to let the kids in the building and get them where they want. So we actually gain 30 minutes. We have 90 minutes of time. Plus, after school, we wouldn't have anyone to supervise students. We have no supervision right now in high school. It's been a result of reductions over the past few years. So we would need to bring folks in to supervise students. Obviously, teachers are involved in PLC, so that would be an added cost. So those are some of the issues that came up.
Okay. All right. In an effort to wrap this up, remember, this is the information meeting part. This was the information sharing. This is going to come back before the board in 2 more weeks, and in the meantime, if the board has additional questions, they'll funnel them back through me. If parents have any more suggestions or issues, funnel them back through me, because what we want is the board to have all the information available to them before they actually make their decision. It's very clear to me, and it was an easy sell from the administrative and the district leadership team to me to bring this forward to the board, because it was extremely focused on what's best for the students in our district. My role as the superintendent is also to hear what the parents have to say, whether it's Mike or Jeff or Dan, and all the parents I heard at the middle school, to hear what they have to say and what their concerns are, and see if we can do things to address those concerns. And I think you heard a lot of ideas, and as we go forward, if you have any other questions, any other comments, please, by all means, don't be shy. I don't mind getting the emails, and I guarantee you I'll share them with the school board, and they basically do the same thing when they get them, they share them with us to try to find better answers. So.
Thank you. And then can we just get that presentation put on the website?
Right next to the walls.
Yeah.
I do have hard copies to give to everybody tonight if you'd like to.
Okay, maybe you want to put them on the table or something, people can pick them up. Okay, one more question.
Well, actually, several comments and all that, that I would like to bring forward. Just because we were told this is our time to speak, we weren't going to have an opportunity to speak at the next board meeting. And so we would, I don't know if there are others that are interested in still speaking, but I was waiting to let other people talk because I monopolized the HCE meeting a little bit, so, yes, I can, being kind, but, excuse me.
My name is Tim Boyle, and I am a father of both a son at Whitman Middle School and a son at HCE. And a lot of what I'm going to say has already been brought up, and I hate to take your time, but this is my way of bringing to you my concerns in that. But there are some other things that I think that need to be discussed here too. I think one of the biggest problems with this is, as much as the teachers have been working on this, and all the parents have been in favor of it, as far as I can see. We're all in favor of it, and the teachers have been working on this for a long time. It's been sprung on the parents. Even though the presentation here, the earliest date you see information going out to the parents is December 22nd. With a meeting then today, the 9th of January. That's 18 days, including holidays and weekends. So it's not a lot of time to get notification out to the parents. I also have to say that I may have missed the notification from middle school. The first letter I saw from the middle school was a Whitnall alert on Thursday at about 3:30 p.m. And I know at least one parent missed it completely because at HCE he wasn't aware of it, and I actually gave him a copy of it. So the information to the parents hasn't been given there. I know that you guys have talked about implementing surveys to see how things are affecting the parents. I would reverse that and say, send out the surveys and see what the parents are looking at. How will it affect the parents before you implement something? Having the surveys afterwards, great idea too. Continue following up, seeing how it's go. But it hasn't been brought to the parents to see how it's going to impact them. Parents, there are a lot of parents out there, and I've talked to several other ones, that have kids at both the middle school and elementary school level. You get hit doubly on this. You got a late start twice a month where it's 9 o'clock for your middle school, and you got early release every single Wednesday. As a manager, it's hard for me to give all of that flexibility to my workers. My boss is clamping down on my time. My boss has been pretty good. I've been able to get out 2 days a week early being 4 o'clock, so I can get home and to help take care of my kids. My wife is working too. Her boss has been okay too. But it's very, very difficult for us as parents to start late and come home early. There's been recommendations that, hey, talk to your neighbors, see what you guys can do, work as a community. Many of us already are. In fact, we're working, my family alone, carpools with 4 other families, and still there's a lot of jumping around in that. So it's not an easy process. We were told that part of the concerns were the board said, you got to get rid of the half days. Parents are screaming about all these half days because we were up to 10 half days a year. Now we're looking at least on the elementary school level, and again, it may be less than this, but I'm just going 4 weeks a month, 9 months a year. You're talking 36 days being affected versus 10 half days. Again, as one parent said at HCE, if it's an either or, we'll take the half days versus all once a week. It's a lot less disruptive to us. Our bosses are going to be better with us about it, and the families are going to be better. Again, you're saying it's a no-brainer, it's the best thing for the kids. If you're putting stress on the family like this, it's not the best thing for the kids. The concerns about how are the kids going to be taken care of, where are they going to be taken care of, are mom and dad going to be able to get off or start late in order to be able to help take care of the kids. These are all major stresses, and whether no matter how hard the parents try, and I know because I've tried to hide some of my stress from work, my kids pick up on it, and it's going to stress them out too. So this is not a very simple, straightforward thing. Again, the rush is a concern to me. I would expect that you would be better off doing surveys, implement it a year from now. You know, I know it's hard with budgets and all that, but to implement something like this, it's better to take the time to do it right. Again, details, we're not forthcoming. You keep saying, yeah, we're going to have, you know, the why there, we're going to have some of this other instruction and all that, but it's not complete details. If you guys can outline 2-3 plans and say, this is how it's going to work, it's going to be better for us because we're going to understand it, but it also shows that you've got all the details worked out. Right now, it's kind of, let us vote on it, pass it, we'll get you the details later. That's, again, a huge stress on the families. We can't, you know, that's not fair to us. As the people that you're supposed to be helping, and the students you're supposed to be helping, to put all the stress on the families like that, it's not the right way of approaching this. So we would ask that you slow it down and take a look at other options. My understanding is that Franklin and either Greenfield or Greendale use the half-day model versus the early release. Most of us at the HCE, or maybe not most of us, many of us at HCE had recommended take that one step further, do full days. You know, the parents that were screaming that half days were very disruptive, a full day would be better for them to have off. Because then you take a vacation day, a full vacation day, and your boss knows, okay, you're gone. It gives the school district here a chance to meet as a group, to do the vertical alignment that they want to. They can get together at the beginning of the day with all the levels, from high school down to the elementary level, and then break out into subgroups after that, you know, throughout the day. They could get a lot more done doing that, I think, than working in hours, like, you know, 1 hour a week. I think it would be a lot more productive. Other suggestions were also thrown out there by various people within the group at HCE. You know, most of us are coming from the business model versus the educational model. Although I happen to have the benefit of dealing with the medical college's educational process plus its business aspect of it. A lot of our meetings happened over lunch, or happened by teleconferencing, or happened by email or chats and stuff like that. There's that would be another option that we would recommend, is taking some of that, take the technology and employ that to help improve this versus disrupting the families and that. Those are some of the big concerns we have. You've talked about the busing, you know, we've talked about, you know, what we need to do. We agree it's a good idea to have this intercommunication net. It's the logistics and the implementation of it that isn't there. And we don't think that it's been fully looked at, or if it has, the details haven't been provided to us. Again, according to this, the earliest date you see, 18 days is all the parents have known about. So it's a concern to us that you're moving that fast, you're not exploring all the options, and you're willing to disrupt the parents every single week, especially on the elementary school level, versus looking at less disruptive models. It's a hard time for a lot of families. The economy's hard. Like I said, bosses are tough. I'm tough on my employees too when they're trying to come in late or leave early and all that. I try to be as flexible as possible. But if I had someone saying, well, I got to drop my kid off at 9, and I got to be out of here at 2 so I can take care of my other kid on the way out every single week, that would be hard for me to justify that person in that position. And I'm worried that that's going to affect not just myself or my wife, but a lot of other parents that are not able to make this meeting or weren't able to discuss this with other people. Like I said, my boss has been flexible to some extent. I know there's a lot of bosses out there less flexible than that. So these are some of our concerns. We would ask that you take the time, put it together, do it right, have all the details before trying to implement it, and look for a process that's going to be least disruptive. To me, this is the most disruptive you could possibly get for parents. And there are a lot of people here, the kids are in more than one school.
Thank you. Mike?
Mine will be quick, so. Mike Sievert, 6th grade teacher at the middle school. I'm going to further expand on something Mr. Boyle mentioned, and that's on the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays of the month, you're going to have both a late start and an early release. And just to let you know, we do have a lot of older siblings, like middle school, high school children, who are relied upon to, be home for the younger sibling after school hours until, parents get home from work. And when you have both a late start and an early release where one is home and the other's in school, that's going to create a conflict for those families. And even for the ones who are open enrollment, like the Thiele's, I mean, there's going to be a lot of issues there with, okay, who's going to go pick up, who's going to go drop off. I mean, that's pretty hard on them themselves, but just so you know, we do have a lot of older children who do watch younger kids, when there's no school to, help the family out. So just want you to keep that in mind. I did hand Wendy what Greenfield Park and Rec does with the School Extension Activities Program, and they actually offer it K through 8. So again, that might be a solution for, some of the middle school children who can't make it home or, aren't relied upon to be home alone by themselves yet. That's certainly an option to them. There's a cost to it, but it's certainly an option that's out there.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Anyone else?
I just have one more brief comment. I work in IT, and routinely, once a month, I have to go into work on a Saturday, 6 o'clock to maybe 9 or 10 at night. Well, I know that that's something I have to do. Is there any reason that weekends couldn't be considered as part of this? They get together on a Saturday for 2 hours. I just think that should be part of the thought process, because then you're not inconveniencing anybody. Because, aside from the time the teachers would have to take out to meet, but, it's not fun having to, do some work on a Saturday, but, that's life, and sometimes we have to make the hard sacrifices.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the reports, letter B, the spelling curriculum.
All right, I'm here to talk about the recommendation of the Whitnall Academic Achievement Team to adopt Sit-in spelling curriculum starting the 2012-2013 school year. The process that took place prior to this recommendation involved teachers, administration from the elementary level. We met on 3 separate occasions to look at primarily 2 different programs, Rebecca Sit-in as well as the Words Their Way program. The reason those 2 were chosen to kind of act as our starting point was because many of the high achieving or higher achieving districts around us use one of those 2. It's also, they're also the 2 that have the most solid research base as part of the scope and sequence that they make up. Just as an example, Greendale uses Words Their Way, Pewaukee uses Sit-in, Franklin uses Sit-in, New Berlin uses Words Their Way. And I was also, through our curriculum consortium meetings, able to ask other districts as well. Many of the other ones were also either researching programs right now, or their grade levels kind of each did something a little bit differently, a little bit individually per that grade level. So we got together to look at both programs. We were fortunate enough to have representatives at Edgerton as well as Hales Corners who had spent time piloting both of those 2 programs. So in representatives from those piloting teachers were on the spelling committee, so we were able to use their important feedback and expertise with the program. So the first thing that we wanted to do is decide how both of those programs correlate to the Common Core state standards, and both Words Their Way as well as Rebecca Sit-in do have correlation to the Common Core. Rebecca Sit-in has hers a little bit more thoroughly delineated, which we thought was helpful. We had discussions regarding what both of those programs look like in practice, especially using the feedback from our piloting teachers. We reviewed presentations put forth by both companies, both publishers, in terms of the overall components of the program, the research base, the assessments, whether or not the program is cyclical, those types of things. And we, from all of this information we gathered, we developed a list of pros and cons for both programs. In the end, it was determined that Rebecca Sit-in was a program that probably held a little bit
more of an advantage for us. The program involves a cyclical curriculum, which also incorporates high-frequency words on a regular basis. It incorporates working with visual patterns, sight word patterns such as ite, fight, might, that kind of thing. And it also has a vocabulary component. And one of the areas we were looking at in particular was language and grammar use. That has historically, since I've been teaching here anyway, been kind of an area of need at elementary to somehow make that consistent across the grade levels, the grammar piece. She does have that. And so for those reasons, we decided to go with Rebecca Sitton as our universal, our Tier 1 curriculum recommendation, and then using Words Their Way, which wasn't necessarily as strong in some of those areas, as a targeted component, a Tier 2 curriculum for students that either need enhancements or enrichment, or students that need a little bit of additional intervention in the word patterning area. So that's the recommendation of the achievement team. Do you have any questions? Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Wendy. Any questions from the audience on that? Okay. C, facilities update.
Hello, everyone. Not really too much to add on the facility updates other than what was in the packet. The main thing is really the weather. We're going to take advantage of the good weather, and we're continuing work on the foundation plumbing. We're also finishing up some of the foundation walls and footings, and we're probably going to start putting up some of the concrete block walls on the team building specifically this week. So you'll start to see some walls go up as long as we don't have freezing weather and snow. We're going to keep working. So that was not originally the plan, but the weather's in our favor, so we're going to continue to work. And that's really the only area on the site that will be getting any work. It will just be some masonry.
Better schedule on that?
Yeah, things are looking good there as long as it...
I think we're going to have snow in June, July, and August.
We'll be ready for it. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them tonight.
You've indicated that 95% of the subcontracts have been awarded. Are we within budget based on those contracts?
Yeah, we're staying within budget, yep. I mean, there's still some budget assumptions, that we're making going into the spring, because there's still some variables, but by and large, things are looking really good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm assuming you're working with the Park and Recs for about the tennis courts coming up in the spring and things like that?
Tennis court construction will happen after school, so I think that fits within their schedule.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, Finance Committee report.
Thank you. We talked about several issues. We're having another finance facilities meeting. We have it scheduled for the third Monday. It's been a request, and I'm going to ask Dr. Holtz right now. We're going to move it to the 31st, the last Monday of the month. Stephanie, will that work for you?
I will make that work.
Okay. We'll make it for 6:30.
Yeah. What's the date on that?
The 30th. 30th. 30th? Mm-hmm. 31st, 30th. And at that meeting, Doug will be able to present the audit financials and some more of the budget updates as we move forward. Matt gave us a report, as he talked about tonight. Dr. Holtz discussed the committee, the cost of service, the one-to-one computing initiatives, and strategic planning process, currently estimates the computers are. I want to defer this one because there's some, since you and I had our meeting, a personnel committee meeting, are you planning on changing any of, you planning on bringing any back up? Or are we going to go with what's been voted on for the one-to-one initiatives as an example?
For the goals?
Yes.
Well, we'll leave the goals as we're voted on, and then as the updates come, then we'll have to discuss whether that's going to continue or not.
Okay. Then
we had some discussion about the one-to-one computing. Part of the goals is to implement, that was passed, was to implement the one-to-one computing at one grade level for this year. It'll have to come to the board for approval. There's 3 options that are available. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lowell. There is an iPod version. That's approximately $30,000. There's an iPad version of one-to-one computing, which is $75,000. And there's a desktop version, which is approximately $15,000.
How much?
$15,000. Not every student will have
Would have a laptop?
Would not have a laptop. It'd be in a room. Do you mean?
Got it. Desktop. Okay, thank you.
Sure. So we're going to move forward and have further discussion at the next finance facilities meeting as to which one we want to go to make the presentation to the board as to which one we want to go with. Okay? Then there was questions and comments regarding the estimates of strategic plan. It's $4,000 to $6,000. There's an estimate for the survey design, or about $22,000, and an estimate of the group planning sessions would be about $2,000, all related to the goals. We then discussed the forming of a subcommittee for the fundraising. Mr. Quinn Burnett and Mr. Marty Ordnance have volunteered to co-chair the subcommittee. Their services were greatly appreciated by the committee. The whole district appreciates the whole district approach versus the project-originated approach to fundraising was discussed. They're coming back at the next meeting with their recommendations and their thoughts. That was really what happened that day. Stephanie, anything else?
The window.
Oh, thank you, the window. Oh, there was a concern. A parent had called and, I don't know if you guys remember the window that was at the middle school, beautiful artwork that was done, the leaded stained glass. It was taken down. It wasn't tossed away or anything. It was actually taken down and stored incredibly well. But it never fit into the new structure. So instead of letting it go to waste, what we've asked Matt to do is go find an option for us. One option that he came to, and the committee kind of just said, really? Was $12,500.
Start somewhere.
He had to start somewhere. We kind of went, what? Just to display this window. So we're coming up, he's going to come back to us with different options to display this artwork. Okay? So, I believe you talked or communicated to the...
Yeah, I followed up with it.
Okay. And to let them know that we did find it, it's not ignored. It is going to be part of the middle school, or part of the district. So that'll be coming at the next meeting. Thank you, Stephanie. Anything else?
Nope, that covered it.
There we go. Comments, questions?
Okay, Personnel Committee. We did meet earlier this month, and actually the items that we talked about in the Personnel Committee we'll be talking about under the superintendent and district goal update primarily. So I think I'll just defer that for Lowell's report. And I think there wasn't anything else that we talked about. We did a little update on the handbook and asked that the pieces of the handbook that are completed get out to the board so that we can start taking a look at those and start approving that as they come along, and then the pieces that are still needing to be completed, to get a list of those, and then a timeline of when we can expect them to work with that. Tom's been doing a great job with the staff on getting that done. So that was our meeting for now, and like I said, the goal, Lowell will update on under his goals section. Item F, technology infrastructure needs.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and
and members of the board. My name is Eric Grant. I'm the Educational Technology Director for the district. Here to report to you tonight about infrastructure needs in the district, and more specifically, the wireless infrastructure needs, or Wi-Fi, our Wi-Fi network. We have need here. We want to move forward as a district, obviously. And right now, the current system that we have is kind of barely meeting our needs. It's not quite where we need it to be, and we need to do a major overhaul, actually. We have some areas right now, it's called our footprint. We have some areas without coverage in the district. We're about 85% covered. And so we have sections, parts of our buildings that are not covered. And again, this is called our footprint. What area do these transmitters, these wireless items, cover? At some of our buildings, at the middle school and our elementaries, we also have a problem because we're running older Wi-Fi technology. The current standard is called N. They're running G. It's a slower standard, so it means these buildings are running slower than the high school is. We also have an increase in devices. There's more and more technology coming in. Computers that we've purchased, plus other devices coming in from the outside. That's our density, meaning how many transmitters do we actually have? Do we have enough to handle all the devices that we have? In this room right now, we have a number of laptops up front, and a bunch of you have devices out in the audience, and we only have one transmitter that's probably barely handling the amount of traffic that we're just putting out in this room. Now imagine all of our students with all of their devices. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to provide appropriate wireless internet access at all buildings. The best coverage we can, the best footprint we can, with enough density to handle our future needs. And I'm going to emphasize short term. Nobody can predict the future, obviously. It's for the next several years, next couple of years, 3 hopefully, what we get away with. And we start talking about programs like Bring Your Own Technology, or the one-to-one that was already mentioned here tonight. We need that access. We need that network in place. We don't have that right now. Our current state. We have an increasing number of devices, more and more and more. We went and purchased last year a number of Apple products. Those were laptops. We are talking about other directions we want to go, whether it's the one-to-one, people bringing their own technology. And we don't have enough or big enough footprint, and we definitely don't have enough density to make this happen. So to illustrate that, what am I talking about here? Well, here's an example, Whitnall High School. It's one floor. The areas in blue, those have adequate coverage right now. And this is the footprint we're talking about. How much area do we have covered? But then you see some areas in other colors here, pink, where there's very little coverage. Someday you might go in there with a laptop, you might get coverage, some days you might not. And then we kind of have this orangish colored area here, there's nothing. It's a big gap. So if you take a device in there, you're not getting network access. Of greater concern is density, because of the number of devices that are coming in. Our system, and I apologize, it's not to scale here, work with me a little, okay? Our system was designed for having just a few laptops in our building. So imagine we're walking down a hallway in one of our buildings here, one of our schools at Whitnall, and you might see 2 transmitters, one at either end of the hallway right there, and we kind of went with just a few laptops. That's what this was designed around years ago. The system was designed before we went and made a $500,000 purchase of laptops. And we got all of our staff laptops, and we put a whole bunch of laptops into the hands of our kids. And so we already have inadequate signal. Now we start doing this. January last year, huge purchase, lots of laptops in our buildings. Now we're having trouble, that signal is struggling. We continue to add. And now we're talking about items like this. And so we're starting to bring in smartphone technology. Bringing in, talking about maybe a one-to-one tablet. And certainly our students want to start bringing these in. Our teachers are bringing them in to use. And so we're adding all these devices onto our system along with all of our laptops. And something like this begins to appear, especially as we go one-to-one. We're not there. We need to start getting something like this where we have very strong signals overlapping that can handle the numbers of devices that we're talking about with all these different programs. So a project. We need to increase our density. That means a lot more transmitters. For the older grades, middle school and high school, that means putting in enough transmitters, almost one to every academic room. Right now, if we were to wheel in a laptop card into a room, and maybe next door they've got bring your own technology and a dozen kids have a device going, and the next room over, that teacher says, well, we're on the one-to-one, and today you're all bringing in your tablets, our system would melt down. We do not have the roadway to take care of that. We need to future-proof our system. How many devices are we bringing in? That's difficult to plan right now. We know we don't have enough signal strength right now for what's in our buildings. Who knows where we're going in the future? We need to get the speed increased up to the current standard at the other buildings other than the high school. And we need to fill in the gaps in the coverage. An example that was brought in right now was high school conferences, was told me the other day. And right now those are held in the main gym. There's not enough signal there to handle all the teachers in there showing all the parents the current grades that they're having and access the data they need while parent-teacher conferences are going on. Some pre-planning. Transmitter, one's sitting right up there. It's a device, it will fail eventually. So one of the things we need to do with this project also is to pre-plan ahead. What if one of those fails? That's a critical piece right now. Certain school board members right now have had first-hand experience of what happens when our wireless system fails. So we're going to purchase some extra ones with this if this project moves forward so that it's instant turnaround. One goes down, we find out about it, we can swap it out in a few minutes, next one's ready to go and up, and then we'll engage the warranties at that point and get the failure replaced. Rolling access points. What happens when we have big meetings? We take our students, we put them into an auditorium or a gymnasium, and we're asking them to take care of something there with a lot of electronic devices. Right now our system doesn't care or take care of that. We're going to create a couple of rolling access points, simple carts like this with additional transmitters that we can wheel in on a moment's notice into any point in the district, plug them in, and then we now have extra signal strength, extra bandwidth. The last one to deal with is something called EMR. And I'm not going to go into a lot of this. This gets pretty technical. It's electromagnetic radiation. Even though we have a person who has been surveying the district for us and all of our buildings and looking at sources of interference, these are radio transmitters, they can be interfered with. One thing that you can't get out of 100% is sources of EMR. Everything electronic gives them off. So everything you see plugged in this room is giving off electromagnetic radiation. We also need to have some extra access points to overcome that. So when we find that room that we can't get signal into, we can add extra an access point in there, take care of that. Some goals. Yeah, this one's a hard sell. I can't tell you that we're going to gain 2 ACT percentage points by doing this. This is the pathway. It's the roadway to getting us to all these other projects that we want to do. We need immediacy of information so that when teachers are working with their kids, it's quick, it's instant on, it's an efficient use of all those contact minutes we talk about, all those teaching hours, that information is right there. Whether it's a student accessing it or a staff member accessing it, it's at their fingertips quickly. Another thing that we need to open up is multimedia. We did a really good job here a year ago. Before I got here, the tech guys, Chris, Jesse, Matt Carson got together and they worked with Time Warner Cable and they got us additional bandwidth. And so they paved us a really nice highway coming from the outside world to Whitnall. The problem is, right now what's happening is we got a really great highway coming in from the outside world and we're stopping in that last mile, and that last mile is still a gravel road. It's the best analogy I can give you, because our wireless system isn't up to snuff. Okay, and so we're slowing down there. And one of the things we've been able to start opening up are multimedia resources, great resources, video streaming, that type of thing, into our district, but we're still getting hampered a little bit by our lack of a good wireless network. Budget, it's a big project. It's a long-term project. We've already started kind of trying to gather some quotes to get some ideas of what this is going to cost us. About $114,000 for all the hardware, and that's with some huge discounts coming from Hewlett-Packard. They are our network services provider. They have been for a number of years for our backbone equipment. So $114,000, that's getting us about a 55% discount off of retail. Installation is coming to about $26,000. We do need to hire an outside contractor for some wiring. Programming we'll do in-house. Total bill's looking about $140,000. A timeline for this. It's a summer project. and it will really disrupt. We have to run wiring down the hallways, corridors, that type of thing. And so it's about 4 to 6 weeks to get contract signed, goods delivered here, and then about 12 weeks for the installation and the programming of all the devices. Goal, obviously, to have it up and running September 1 for next school year. Any questions? Yes, sir.
A really simple one. Is this running through this year's budget or next year's budget?
Next year's budget. Yeah. And we did check, HP will do deferred billing too. So if we do decide we want to move forward with this, they'll let us start getting the equipment in here, getting it set up, ready to go, and they'll defer us out to the next budget year. Yeah.
In all of our buildings, as you know, most of our switches are full or at capacity. In other words, we can't add anything more to our system or at capacity. How much more is this implementation going to give us? Because I know for my stuff, from a building standpoint, technology is going forward.
Yep.
Where we have our little fob system that you can get security access to all the buildings. That's kind of going to be running on a network.
Yep.
A lot of the camera system that we're doing is running on the network. Burglar alarm systems are going to be running on the network. Our building automation system is going to be running on the network. So my stuff is also going to be impacting school network and kind of choking it. So I just want to make sure that we have enough in place so that I can add all my devices.
Yeah, and that's what this is also putting in there. And again, it's that future-proof kind of thing. And I'll get a little technical into what you're asking is that this is providing for what are called network switches, our backbone switches, and actually replacing some of our old ones with the newer, current, faster standard. And it's also one of the things I asked our network specialists to do, and it is costing us a little bit more up front, is eventually we're going to have to address our phone system too, which is aging very poorly, does need to be replaced. It's an old, outdated technology. It isn't even made and hasn't been produced in 10 years. And so one of the things that I asked them to do, I said, make sure anything we're putting in, and we do have to put in that kind of equipment that stays in a back dusty closet that you never really see, that it would be compatible with voice over IP systems, so that when we do move to a new phone system, this is compatible with it, we'll work with a new phone system, that kind of thing. It does add capacities. You're talking about extra switch ports, that kind of thing in there. Now, I don't know how many you're talking about, but, you know, again, it's putting in the backbone pieces we need now and to grow.
You don't need, you're not looking for approval this month. We'll have time to go through the Finance Facility Subcommittee, have an opportunity to speak with Doug and roll through it that way. So we're looking at possibly March, April would be sufficient time frame?
Oh, yeah. And my hope is that if we could get this approved even by early May, that would give us time to order and get everything here so that as soon as the students are done, we can get rolling on the, you know, the heavy work part of it.
Then if you could, for the meeting on the 30th of this month, would you be able to bring in a little bit more detail for that committee?
Yep.
And have tied in with what Matt's looking for, make sure you guys are on the same page?
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
And we'll have that information we can discuss.
TJ, I had one question. For that data that you're going to bring into that meeting, could you specifically try to make an estimate on, I'm generally a big fan of one-time costs, right?
Yeah.
I'll buy a phone if you pay the bill every month.
Yep.
For $140,000 to give us Wi-Fi throughout, great. What's it going to increase our cost going forward every year then for upkeep, maintenance? What's it do to our requirement? Is the highway that we have from Time Warner that we're paying for currently enough to meet the needs of adding those many units, and or is there an increased cost there?
Yeah.
What's the going forward estimate to maintain that many new additions?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not much, but it's a number I'd like to
Yeah, you want me to bring that to committee meeting?
I would, yeah.
Beautiful. No problem.
One line, and that would be great.
You talked about future-proofing, and that's all well and good, but we're also talking about technology and how rapidly it changes.
Yep.
So future-proofing, to me, in the technology system could be 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
Which means that we could be revisiting this a year from now, and you may be coming to us again.
Yeah.
Saying, you know, great.
This is future-proofing our wireless a couple years out because there's nothing right now coming down the pike with wireless. But I'm also trying to frame that as don't start thinking 5 and 6 years out either.
Right.
You know, that will change. I mean, we're running on technology through the bulk of the district right now that's actually about 8 years old, and we're at that critical point. We need to change it out. So this gives us right now the next 3 years. Should be good, but beyond that, nobody can predict that, you know. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, G, Superintendent and District Goal Update. Lowell.
Okay, I said on the district goal, I do 1, 3, and 4. Goal number 1 is implementing the MAP testing, and I'll provide this detail to the board and maybe get it out in the next board packet for the public as well. But we're really coming along well with that, and it's been led by our academic achievement team, and Wendy's had a big part of that. So in August, we made the purchase. In September, we had a lot of training in on-site MAP implementation. In October, our elementary students participated in an initial MAP testing session. In November, we had additional training from NWEA on the effective retrieval and use of student data reports. In November, for the first time, we were able to do student progress reports home with the kids, with a cover letter explaining it in the report. This is happening fast, so we haven't had a lot of time to talk about the feedback from the principals yet. In December, Eric uploaded the middle class roster file and worked to prepare the middle school server labs for winter testing window. And in January, from almost the entire month, elementary and middle school students will participate one more time in a winter map testing session. Middle school for the first time, elementary will be just another level of the floor for us. And this is what we need to effectively measure academic achievement. The WKCE is the current testing that we use. That could change depending on what the budget is at the state level. Are they going to change they're already changing teacher effectiveness and tying it in with academic achievement and accountability. So the nice thing about the MAP testing is it'll give us a consistent floor that we can use across the district. That's goal number 1. Goal number 3, actually, Matt, you want to just mention that real fast, the energy study of the district?
There's 2 things in the goal. One is to move forward with an energy study, and the other is to obtain Energy Star certification, and I'll address those 2 separately. The Energy Star certification is simply a number that they use 1 to 100 based on, and they base that number on what your total energy performance is in the building, so that's your grade. So let's say, for example, high school gets an Energy Star rating of 50. Well, 50 would maybe be like a national standard. Well, we may want to go a little higher than that. So what we can do is we can take an energy study to say, okay, what are the areas that we need to improve on to get our energy number higher? So it's the Energy Star certification is really just a grading scale. When you start getting into the upper 70s and 80s, that's when they start issuing those nice bronze plaques that you can put, at your lobby. And there's only a few places around that have achieved that, and obviously achieving that does come at a cost. So to look at how to handle the cost for that, Doug and I have been working on possibility of executing a performance contract. And in a nutshell, what that is it's a program that the state offers us that allows us to get financing to do an energy project. The savings that the energy project brings back to the district is used to pay off the original bond or financing or whatever, how you want to look at that. There's only a handful of agencies that the state has approved to do that. So Doug and I have been working on trying to select the best one that's going to be the best match for our district as far as that goes. So those are really the 2 things that I've been working on. The third one is a program that CISA 10 offers, that basically they'll come in as an energy manager and they'll try to save the district money either by changing the culture or through education, but they get paid based on their energy savings. So if they save X amount of dollars, 50 to 60% of that may go back to them, and that's how they make their money. So those are 3 things. The third one I'm not really interested in at this point. I'd rather look at the other 2. So that's where we're at with the goal. And as far as getting our number, I am working on that right now. I've been using a program since I got here called Utility Direct, and that data bridges into Energy Star's Portfolio Manager. So I'm getting really close to being able to come back to the board and say, okay, this is our score for each school. So
96?
combined score.
Do you have any idea of the payback if the energy costs to upgrade is X and
they usually
is Y, what's the payback?
They'll want you to come in around 7 years, realistically, depending on what you do. I mean, like window projects and some lighting projects, the return on investment isn't there. But, you know, the big systems, the boilers, the chillers, some even roofing insulation systems will provide you with a quicker payback. So.
Are they asking us to actually float a bond or sign some type of obligation with them?
That's something Doug might be able to answer, but.
We can finance a number of different ways. One would be that to get the money up front. Key things about the program, I think, are that you don't have to have a referendum to do this. And typically, you select a vendor, they come in and they give you an estimate of what it's going to cost to do all of the work. If you choose them then to do the work, you don't pay them anything. And then you get your, you know, the savings are generated by the work. If you choose to use somebody else, then there's a fee that you have to pay to that particular vendor. So.
Yeah, they do the energy study for you.
Right.
Any other questions? But I'll be obviously reporting back to the board with this with Doug in the future, so. Okay.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, and goal 4 is actually even an easier one. Goal number 4 is research and present a proposal to update the wireless infrastructure to meet the needs of current and emerging technologies. I think Eric did an excellent job of that, and so that was our report on goal 4. Superintendent goals.
Can you just back up and report a little bit on goal number 5, because we did.
Yep, I did.
We had talked about that.
Sure.
We were going to set a meeting with the board first.
Yes, I've got a meeting scheduled for Friday with Rob Hankin. The first step was making sure that the financing piece was in place with the finance committee,
okay.
Which we did a couple weeks ago. So I set up a follow-up meeting with Rob, sent them all of our materials that I currently have. I know that tomorrow, Joan and I are going to go through a file that she has as a backup file and get that information out to them. I believe we'll be meeting in committees. We talked about it at the admin team meeting a couple times, where we'll stick with the administrator assignments to the specific committees, and basically it'll be a review process, and it'll be in front of the board for approval easily by the June 2012, probably, hopefully months ahead of that.
So wasn't the first step, though, that they wanted to meet with the board first?
That was if we were doing a full-blown everything version.
From the ground up. Okay, all right.
And the feeling I got from the committee meetings and the last board meeting was that let's look at the review process first and see if that'll do what we wanted to do.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, now, under the superintendent goals, and again, I'll put these out to you guys, because I have details on the other goals as well.
And the district goals are on the website. Maybe you want to say where they are?
They're under About the School District. Let me pull it up real quick. Yep, right underneath where it says district, and then the very first bullet point is About Whitnall School District. You hover over that, and it'll do a drop-down menu, and you can see the district goals pop up there. And thanks to Joan for getting that done. And Eric? Thanks to Joan, anyway. Superintendent goals. The leadership coaching for superintendents training, the first 2 full-day sessions were on November 30th and December 1st. Most of the 16 hours was spent reviewing research-based leadership practices that strengthen those being coached. What's really interesting is that the course is based on the ISLIC administrator standards, which are strongly recommended for effective leadership evaluation. it's neat how this ties in with goal number 5, which was review administrative evaluation process and compare with current best practice. In a separate but parallel conversation at the admin team level, when we've been looking at how do we measure and do evaluation for the admin team, we landed on using the ISLIC standards, and they're spelled out really nicely, and I also put those out to the board for your review, because we want to do a portfolio assessment based on those, which ties in also with the leadership coaching, which I've been attending. So the program outcomes demonstrate competency in coaching individuals and groups, demonstrate knowledge of the 7 administrative standards. When you look up ISLIC standards, there's really only 6. They're thrown in one that says you should know the teacher standards as well. And then competency in coaching leaders to identify issues, overcome barriers, and design effective system change within their organizations to improve student achievement, which is what we've been spending the last couple hours on here tonight. I mean, it's very important to look at that system change. And then competency in coaching to administrative standards and effective leadership practice that support student achievement. And then the detail I'll also again provide, as I stated before. Number 2 was provide team building training opportunities for the administrative team and the school board. Dr. Jonas met with the Personnel Committee on January 3rd to present his proposal. As Nancy was mentioning a little bit, specific action plans include meeting with representatives of the school board and superintendent to establish goals, benchmarks, and agree on an outline of activities for developed team building and leadership. Meet with the administrative team for feedback and ideas on goal setting for the developing the team building and leadership, and that's scheduled for Wednesday, January 11th. We have him coming at 2:30. We'll do our admin team meeting. We'll just back it up an hour before that. Communicate and meet with the school board, personnel committee to keep apprised of activities in progress, and develop assessment tool survey, which is really one of the things that Dr. Jonas does extremely well with his background in statistics, is designing those assessment tools and surveys. And then I was only going to comment on the top 2. I brought in number 5. As far as number 3, ensuring implementation of district goals, I think we did a good, we took a lot of good steps towards doing that, and I think it'll be nice to track it as we're doing on a regular basis. Engaging the facilitator to lead the board and administrative team through diversity training by the end of May based on availability. I'm interviewing 2 candidates for that in the next week or 2. And then, like I said, on the administrative evaluation process, which is goal number 5, it's really coming together nicely, and it was unanimously agreed upon by all the people that are affected. So that's the goal updates.
And you'll send that out to us?
Sure.
Have we entered into some with an agreement, Dr. Jones?
He gave a proposal to, I can't remember which committee it was. Personnel Committee. And my impression is that I have the green light to move ahead with them.
Doesn't that come before the full board?
It could. I mean, it was listed as a goal which was approved by the board, so maybe it should have the finance committee.
I recall, we didn't have the cost, did we?
Right. Would the finance committee make sense, Bernie?
Well, I mean, if it's an approval, it has to come to the full board.
Once you plan on bringing it to the finance committee meeting on the 30th again, and then we can go from there.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
It was a rather substantial amount, if I recall.
Did I include that?
It was not in the packet, but it was in an email.
An email, okay. $4,000 is the total, Bernie.
Was the initial, but there was a menu of items, and I think if you added up all the menu items, if we're only choosing, a couple things from the menu, that's fine. But the entire menu was over 20,000.
No. Here's the proposal. The entire menu is $4 grand. You can have this.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that much, because, yeah, it's,
I see that.
Down by your-
yeah, the total is $4,000.
Yeah, if I sent an email out that misled you, I apologize, I didn't.
I'll find it. He probably added things that he'd be willing to do for, with his expertise and our money, we can go a long way together. I'm telling you, spending that.
Any questions on the superintendent or the district goals?
Well, what I have is, we'll bring it to personal. Good. Nothing.
Nothing? Okay.
What, comments, or where are you? Oh, we're going to go over the room.
Okay, comments on superintendent district goals? Okay. 6, new business, open enrollment seats. That would be a Tom.
In the packet, you have a cover sheet for open enrollment. In recent years, the district's practice has been to approve students who are currently attending under a tuition waiver if they choose to apply for open enrollment, that because they're already included in our projections for next year. There are already students in our district who have since moved out during the course of this year. If they choose to remain, they would be approved for an open enrollment seat. The data that's in that chart on that page is as of January 2nd. That is a number that can fluctuate quickly. We just can't predict, who may move, who may not. And the other part is to, these are the grade levels that are currently impacted by that, but they are included in our projections, so that's what we have been doing in recent years. When you go to the next part, and at the next meeting, administration will bring forward a recommendation for identifying the number of additional or available seats for open enrollment for the 2012-13 school year. At this point, with our preliminary planning, what we're identifying there is a total of, I believe it's 32?
32.
Yeah. 32 seats. Yep. And obviously you can see it goes from K-5 with 1 seat all the way through 10th grade with 4 seats, just varying numbers. What we did at the elementary level is looking at any grade level that was below 23 as an average, we brought it to 23, so that still allows us for growth within the district if we have students that move in. But it does identify a seat that may be available, but we wouldn't be putting more students in. At the middle school, right now, this current school year, the number that we had looked at was a class size, and I use this term loosely, but the total number in a class, so when you look at 6th grade as a total, or 7th grade as a total, and then divide by the academic teachers, that giving a class size of 27 or 28 is where we were looking at. So at this point, with the projected enrollment that we anticipate for the middle school, we would not be identifying any open enrollment seats in addition to the students that we currently have at the middle school. And then at the high school, we have traditionally accepted some students at 9th grade level. And here, what we're doing is looking again at a total class, because it's very difficult to predict class size across different subjects, because students choose to take courses, and you may have a great variety of class sizes. And we have different policies and procedures in place so that if enrollment in a class is under 18 for a normal class, that class won't run. So we have ways to keep our class sizes in manageable ways. But what we're looking at is maintaining classes in the neighborhood of 210 to 215 students at the high school, which we think that would be a good size for our high school as a total. So that's how these preliminary projections were arrived at. So that's kind of where we see the proposal coming in at the next meeting. We do have to have a vote at the next meeting because we have to identify those seats in the month of January prior to the open enrollment application period, which is in February.
Okay. Questions for Tom?
Tom, I'm taking a look at 3rd grade, and in the tuition waivers between the 2 elementary schools, I see that we have 4 students identified that we would put on waiver. Is that current third graders, or they're second graders that will be third graders?
Second graders that will be third graders.
Okay, so given that, then I look further down on the chart, and we've identified 10 seats in third grade in addition to the 4.
The 4 are already in our projections.
Right, I understand.
And the 10 is across both elementary schools.
Okay, so that's 5, is the current second grade that small? I mean, 14.
We added a second grade at Edgerton, and that reduced the class size so that there is available space.
Okay.
Then my question to you, Tom, is if I take the same chart from a year ago, what is the number of, do most or all of our tuition waivers turn to open enrollments? What's historically our process?
For the most part, yes, but not completely 100%. It really is, it's a decision that the family is making. A lot of times when you have a student that's in kindergarten or first grade, they just want to finish the year, and then they want to go to their neighborhood school or where they've moved to. When you get to a high school student or a student who has been here for maybe 5 or 6 years and then moves, a lot of times they want to maintain with the students that they've been with for 5 or 6 years. So it really does vary. And with open enrollment, transportation is the responsibility of the family, so sometimes that plays a part in it also, where an elementary student or a middle school student may not have that option, but a high school student who drives maybe has the ability to continue, even though they've moved out of the district, if their parent applies for it, that they can actually transport themselves.
Typically, how many of our tuition waiver kids go from the transitional years? It's a question I'd like to have the answer to. So like 5th to 6th, 8th to 9th, do we lose those tuition waiver students typically?
No.
Or do they stay with us?
They would normally stay.
Other questions? Okay, number 7, thank you, Tom. Number 7, comments from the school board regarding agenda items for future consideration.
I'll bring it to you, but I will start at the finance facilities meeting. The bond defeasance, where we stand, what we're doing. The other one would be a complete update on the audit. We'll start at the finance piece and move it forward, but I would like it in the next committee as a whole meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Could, did you say the audit's in now, Doug?
Yes.
Could you give us copies before that 30th meeting?
Sure. In fact, I had planned to get them to you before next week's meeting.
That's even better.
We'll take it.
So there's a little chance to, you want somebody from Baird at the finance committee? Talk about the defeasance?
Yeah, if you can get somebody, that'd be great, because that's what I'd like to
We
start.
should probably give Lisa a call.
They want to take care of that, Doug?
Sure, I can do that. As a matter of fact, I'll be at Baird's office next Tuesday for an update on the budget model. So I'll see her at that time, or I can call her ahead of time and arrange something. But sure, I can take care of that.
Perfect.
Other items for future? Okay, number 8, board member announcements.
Okay, January 3rd was the last day for candidates for school board to get their papers in. And we have 4 candidates that filed to run for school board. And today we picked the order that they'll be placed on the ballot. The ballot will read as follows: John Jones, Eileen Velitis, Michael Carizio, and Quinn Brunette. And the election is April 3rd.
And there are 2 seats, correct?
There are 2 seats.
Other announcements? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nobody. Thank you.